Welcome to the Excel Pod. Welcome to the Untied Podcast, where we unravel the knots of life with faith, wisdom, and encouragement, because together we're here to untie from tradition and embrace truth through powerful Bible teaching. My name is Garrett and Bernethy. I'm one of the hosts of the show, along with my very good friend Corey Sawyers. And today we are bringing you another episode for Season 3, as we are looking at the Psalms. And we have entitled this season, more or less, I guess, The Blessed Man. And we're looking at what that looks like, and we're specifically looking at the Psalms of David. Today we're in Psalm 3. Not chapter 3, but Psalm 3. Not Psalms 3, but Psalm 3. And we're going to talk about things in regard to that today. But first, before we do anything, we've got to break into our normal bannering session where we just talk about all things good in life, and that is the What's Been Cooking segment of the show, which I'm always excited for. So, Corey, brother, what's been cooking?
Well, not much. We've been so busy. We honestly haven't been doing a lot. You look sharp in the vest, by the way.
Well, thank you.
But I think the only really home-cooked meal we've had in the last week is Melody made a big pot of soup. I'm not sure what it is called, but it's basically, you would think it was just cheese dip that you'd made for like Rotel or whatever.
Yeah.
Except it's got I think maybe some beef broth in it and stuff to make it a little bit more soupy. But Melody likes to eat hers over crunched up tortilla chips. I like to eat mine with cornbread, but I think every soup is better with cornbread. So anyway, but yeah, we just been on the run, it seems like, here lately. I told Melody the other day, I said, we just need to eat some vegetables. And so she did. Well, I said there's another night we did cook at home. We took some smoked sausage and sliced it up into little coins and fried that up and dumped some peppers and onions and hash browns in there and just made a big one-pot fried conglomeration. And then yesterday I got home for lunch and there was about a half a bowl of that soup left. And there was about a half a bowl of the sausage potato mixture left. And so I just put it all together and microwaved it, and called Melanie. I said, all right, I just found the way to make that soup even better. And so it's kind of a potatoey, cheesy, spicy. I don't know. It was good, though.
Yeah. Well, I think you've just shown what part of life. This is what you have to look forward to, young folks who are out there tuning into the Untied Podcast, is that you're going to come to a moment in your life where you're like, we need to eat more vegetables.
Yeah. She made green beans with it, and I'm like, yeah, I probably needed that a little bit. So,
oh man, I too have joined more of the vegetable train. Not all of the vegetable train, but there's a lot more stuff that I like. But I'll tell you, I'm really excited about this weekend. It is OU Texas weekend. Red River Rivalry is here. The 3 R's have come to town. Or are going to Dallas, I guess I should say. And beef ribs are what we'll be cooking this weekend. So, awesome. You know, we've always talked about our smokers. I don't know if I told you this, but my motor went out on my Traeger, and the first time I've actually replaced it twice, but the first time was because the pellets in there got wet. And where that auger is, and when it happens, man, that stuff just becomes like concrete. So it just stripped out that original motor. Otherwise, it would have been fine. So that was Probably more my fault than anything. But then I replaced it, and that motor I think it always had some kind of issue, just bought it off Amazon. But the new ones that are out, they're a little bit more stronger. They're supposed to regulate temperature better. And so, those things are so easy to change out. It took me about, 5 minutes to change it out. And so now that thing is back up and going and ready to go. So have a buddy here in remember the church here in Hydro, and he butchered a couple cows, and he said, "Here, this is what we're having," and he gave me a bag that's got 7 racks of beef ribs in there. So we're gonna have some fun with that. Maybe sprinkle a little gospel on there. Something that'll be good, and I'm looking forward to. I love a good beef rib.
Yeah. Well, I've had beef ribs one time at a restaurant. I had a buddy of mine that had bought a whole cow, had it slaughtered, and he told me one day, he said, "Have you ever smoked?" He knew I liked to smoke meat. He said, "Have you ever smoked beef ribs?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, when I got my cow slaughtered, I got the ribs. And would you be willing to try them?" And I told him, I've told you before, my 2 rules when anybody asks me. Number 1, if I mess it up, you can't be mad at me. Number 2, you have to let me help you eat them. And he said, "Well, of course." And, we were kind of talking about when we might do that. And a couple of weeks before it would have happened, he called me. He said, "Dude, I got bad news." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I was walking out to my shop." And he said, about halfway between the house and the shop, I smelled something funny. And when I got out there, his freezer had quit and he didn't know it. And that whole thing was ruined. And so we didn't get to do it. So I want to do that one day. But this week is also not as big a deal as that rivalry, but it's Tennessee-Arkansas, which is the warm-up for the 3rd Saturday in October, which in our opinion is the biggest rivalry in college football, of course. And so it's funny because we were off this past week. We went 4 weeks in a row. We were at number 15. We would win, we'd stay at 15. We'd lose, we'd stay at 15. We have an off week and don't play anybody, and we move up 3 points. So
yeah, that's how we were.
It's been kind of funny, but anyway, I'm hoping that Arkansas didn't make a coaching change in time to save their season, and they're still playing poorly when they get to Rocky Top. So
yeah, I think Tennessee's
we're going up to the game. We're going up to the game this weekend.
Oh, you are? Oh man, that's going to be great. Yeah. I think that y'all are going to handle that one pretty easily.
I'm hoping.
I've seen some interesting coaching possibilities for Arkansas, none of which I think are going to happen. But, Oklahoma State is looking for a coach too. Mm-hmm. And every other meme and picture that's out there are people, it's Nick, of all people, Nick Saban. Oh, he's really thinking about it. Like, no, there's no way in the world. But then they've linked, everybody from Deion Sanders to, several coaches to the Arkansas job. I don't know what's going to happen there, but it seems like Arkansas is always on the cusp of being a powerhouse, but they never really crossed that line. It's almost like, I kind of think Texas Tech is a little bit that way. Right now those dudes are rolling. I think they're probably the best team of the Big 12, but they're always on the cusp of it. But who knows? That may change. The rules of college football are very different today than they were even 5 years ago. So there's no telling, who would be. Would we have ever thought, Corey, that we'd be sitting here saying that Vanderbilt is one of the best college football teams in the nation right now? I know they got beat last week, but it's very different. So everything's on the table right now.
Yeah, and to be clear for all of our Arkansas fans that are watching, in Tennessee, we do love the hogs. We love them smoked and fried, and, So I am looking forward to.
We love them in every way they can be fixed.
That's right. Sausage, ribs, pork chops, you name it. Bacon.
Pork ribs are my favorite food group.
That's right. And so, but you think they're wild hogs, and every time you hear anybody talk about wild hogs, the word that's always used is that they are a nuisance. And that's kind of what we, I was actually in 1998, our national championship year. I was actually at Tennessee whenever we played Arkansas. And if you remember way back in the time machine, the Clint Sterner stumble fumble, I was at that game. It was pouring down rain, and we were trailed the whole game. Went forward on 4th down at midfield, trying to make a comeback, and we didn't get the first down, and all they had to do was run out the clock. And Billy Ratliff, nose tackle for Tennessee, pushed the center back into him, made him fall. We recovered the fumble. The loudest I've ever heard in Neyland Stadium was whenever we scored the winning touchdown. And I had like we would do back then, little radio clipped to my belt with the little earbuds in, and John Moore turned wide up, and I could not hear one thing he was saying. It was so loud. So,
man,
and we had I remember we had also, we had an 8 overtime, maybe 7 overtime game with them. Jason Witten caught a pass, Dallas Cowboy tight end fame, caught a pass that won the game in the 7th or 8th. I forget which it was, overtime. So we've had some exciting games with them, but I'm like you. I'm hoping this one is not an exciting game.
Yeah.
And we can just eat, drink, and be merry and enjoy the good times. So,
well, I don't know if I told you this, but this past, I'm trying to think when it was, maybe earlier in the year, I can't remember, but I went up to Cave Springs, Arkansas, and went and preached there and did an Excel presentation. And my buddy Steve Schinnerer, who's the preacher there, he said, "Well, hop in the car and we'll go drive around." And as it had been a while since I've been up in that area, and it's grown so much. You got Rogers and Bentonville, and well, anyway, we went down to Fayetteville, where Arkansas is, where the university is. And we drove. I was like, well, let's go look at the football stadium. So we did. And in front, and Corey, that you will even appreciate this, being the outdoorsman that you are. Picture there in front of the stadium is a 15-foot, maybe 18-foot tall, I think it's a bronze statue. It looks like something that should be in Cabela's or some huge, store like that. And I believe it's 3 hogs. And it is the most magnificent statue. It is awesome. And there's just 3 hogs. I think 2 are on the ground. One's kind of coming up on his hind legs. And I was like, wow, that is cool. And it sits right in front of the stadium when people walk in. Really, really neat. So, yeah, that's cool. They actually have a really neat stadium too, but that was a really cool addition.
That's one of the cool things. Like we were noticing when they released the 4-year permanent schedules for the SEC,
permanent, non-permanent.
And I was talking. Yeah, we were out in Denver when that happened, and I was talking with Wayne Jones, who's a big Ole Miss fan, about. He was very upset that Oklahoma, he's like, what connection do we have with Oklahoma? And I said, well, they had to connect them to somebody, But anyway, we were talking about how that in a couple of years, Tennessee's playing at Ole Miss for the first time in a long time. And I said, we need to commit to going to that game together.
Yeah.
And he said, as much as I can for the future, we will. But I told him, I said, I would love to go to other stadiums and see but I want to go with somebody like that's a big fan of that team.
Yeah.
Like if I went to an Oklahoma game, I'd want to go with someone like you or John Arvin or somebody that really I want to know the tradition, because that's what makes college football special.
Yeah.
And I love, like I went to a Georgia game with Neil Pollard one time, and he's explaining so much of the lore and the history that I didn't know anything about.
Yeah.
And wouldn't have if I just showed up and, went to the game and that type of thing. But I love taking people with me to Knoxville and showing them, the traditions and,
Right.
why we do this and when we started doing that and, those kinds of things. But that's the neat part about college football that makes all these rivalries and games so cool to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be really awesome. Every time we go through Knoxville, going back and forth to South Carolina, a lot of times we drive through there. I'm like, all right, where's the stadium at? And I'm looking, and every time I'm like, I want to drive over there, but we are always stuck in traffic. And then we always miss the turn. So, because I think about it too late. But that would be very, very cool to do that. Maybe we ought to plan that out. So, but I was very surprised that Ole Miss was on our list. It's not a rivalry. It's never been a rivalry. Maybe some Missouri fans think it's a rivalry, but I kind of figured that Missouri was going to be one. And of course, nobody's messing with OU Texas. But the Ole Miss doesn't bother me. I really thought it was going to be, everybody thought it would be either LSU or Florida. There's a little bit more connection there. Everybody really, I think, was hoping for LSU. And mainly because it's closer. So fans could travel a little bit better than they could to Florida. But the Ole Miss was kind of a curveball, but that's fine. I don't mind beating Ole Miss for the next 4 years. It's cool.
Yeah.
I love Garrett.
Well, and it's like, there's no connection now, but, you play each other 4 years and something's probably going to, it's kind of like, us, like I said a few moments ago with Arkansas, before they came to the SEC, we didn't have any real connection to them or rivalry with them. But there for a while, when we had two cross the conference, between the two divisions, you had two every year rivalry. Ours was Alabama and Arkansas, and so we played them every year for a decade. And you had some of those things pop up, and y'all will the same. But anyway, not cooking a lot, but I'm looking forward to hitting some different places up and around East Tennessee as we travel around. And if nothing else, we'll stop at Buc-ee's, which I think Gannon's is as excited about as going to the actual football game as going.
I love Buc-ee's, man. Yeah. Buc-ee's is awesome. It is, and another good thing about it is the gas there is always cheaper than everywhere else. I mean, like significantly cheaper. So, the bathrooms are always clean. That's +1. It's got good food. That's +2. Gas is cheap. That's +3. I mean, it's excellent.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, it's going to be a good weekend of college football. That's awesome. Y'all are going to get to go to the game. So, we'll be sure to have that on the old TV. I'll see if I can see you.
I'll be the one in orange.
Yep. Yeah, it shouldn't be hard. But I will say y'all probably have the coolest, chant. The Rocky Top. I guess that would be a chant, wouldn't it? It's not really a song, but really cool.
A song.
Yeah.
It's a bluegrass song.
Yeah. So that's a pretty cool thing, to get on and, I'll always see videos coming across social media and it's of that and, the stadium. I love how all the stadiums now have the new lights where they're on and off and they're different colors and that just adds to the atmosphere. So that is really cool and definitely rooting for Tennessee this weekend and not for Texas at all, ever in my life.
In other words, you're rooting for the real UT.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We just lost half of our audience. So anyway,
we have managed to go against Arkansas fans, Missouri fans, kind of, Texas fans, Ole Miss. I mean, we got to turn this thing around. Okay, here we go. Oh man, no, this is a great time of year. Excellent time of year, and we are very happy to be able to share it with you, our audience. I'm grateful that our audience continues to grow, and of course, we hope that everything that we're doing on here, kind of all of our small talk and, really, I think the idea of all of that when we started this was we're just normal guys that we love football, we love food, we love life, we love our family, and you're never going to see us on here so not being somebody, not being who we are basically, and so that's kind of the idea, that to untie from the traditions that have been created about what a preacher may look like or what they should be, and just simply be who you are. And I really believe that's what God wants from us, is to be who we are. Life is too short, and I have thought a lot about this, obviously, over the last few weeks, how short life really is, and if we don't make the best of it, then it's kind of it's sad. And so we want to have fun with life, enjoy it, work hard, play hard, all that good stuff, and have great friends. And I'm grateful for my friendship with Corey, and we're grateful for all of you who are tuning in and listening to us. Today we are looking at another psalm, and that is going to be Psalm 3. And we have entitled this, I guess, Trust During Problems. This is a psalm that is connected back to 2 Samuel 15 through 17, where David David and Absalom are having some things going on. And so we're going to break down this text, kind of like we did last week, looking at the text itself and trying to see what the meanings are, and we'll be posting this on YouTube very soon. For those of you listening, we'll be posting all of our season 3 films on YouTube very soon. Just a little bit behind on that, so I do apologize, but you'll be able to check those out before too long. But I've got this pulled up on the screen, Corey, and we can go ahead and start breaking this down and talking about it by way of introduction. And so I'll turn it over to you and let you kind of introduce Psalm 3 for all of our guests here.
Well, Psalm 3 is a trust psalm, and as indicated in the title you just mentioned before, but the trust psalms are a category of psalms that where the psalmist is dealing with something going on in his life, and he talks about that, he's real about that, and yet at the same time, he's talking about what it is that he's going through that's negative, he's talking about as well the confidence that he has that God is going to take care of him, which allows him, even in the midst of troubles, to have peace and contentment. And Psalm 3 is one of those. And one of the wonderful things about the Psalms, is that it's devotional material, and we need to be devotional beings. Our religion becomes powerful as it becomes personal, and making that application to our daily lives, to trusting God, is more than just lip service. If it's a true, genuine trust that we have in God. And so the Psalms are great reading the Bible devotionally material, because you're able to do something with them that you don't need the breakdowns, the hermeneutics, all of those kinds of things. You can read them and understand that he's going through times of concern and anxiety just like we do, and how that we can have the same trust in God that they have. And of course, for David in this one, the title tells us is when he fled from Absalom, his son. And that if you go back to the historical context in 2 Samuel, Absalom had been allowed to come back to Jerusalem, and Absalom wants to be king. And so he forces his father, David, to leave Jerusalem, and runs him out. I can't imagine being David and having any kind of coup that's trying to overthrow you, and what that would make you think about your relationship with God, much less when that coup is led by your own son.
Yeah. And
so what happened, God? I thought you were establishing a kingdom that would never go away. Well, we've got again, the great things about these Psalms, especially that we're studying this season, is that these are ones that we can directly tie to a point in David's life, and we see what he does and how he reacts. But in these Psalms, we see what he's feeling and what's going through his mind. And, understanding how he's processing, the anxiety and the trouble that he's dealing with can help us as we try to be faithful servants of God as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the idea of being the servant in the right way is certainly a big thing. And in my studies of several different places within the text, that idea of service, that idea of humility, that idea of handing oneself over to God in all times of my life is a huge, huge thing. And so, during the Psalms of David, in many cases, he's writing about his life, and we may not know exactly everything, every situation he writes about. I think in many cases we can figure that out. But this is one of the things that I really love about the writings of David, is that he's a real guy writing about his life. He's talking about the things that are going on, and for me, that's huge because I go through stuff too. Mm-hmm. And as I go through stuff, sometimes I tend to, and I'm literally speaking on behalf of myself, I tend to sometimes hold that stuff in, and my wife gets on to me for it a lot, but I tend to hold it in. I do more thinking about it than talking about it. And sometimes I don't get it out how I should get it out. But mm-hmm. David is somebody who is a great example of a person who shares what he's feeling and what he's going through, and especially in his relationship to God. And so in my life, when I tend to hold that stuff in, sometimes I tend not to pray. I tend not to share it with anybody else. But this is a great example of when you are going through something, and this was hard for David, talking to God about what's going on in every aspect is a huge, huge thing. And so he writes, there in verse 1, "O Lord, how my adversaries have increased." Well, if we just think about this from a practical standpoint, sometimes we can be at a place where maybe our adversaries haven't increased, but in our minds they've increased because the situation, the scenario begins to grow. But in a literal sense, it could also be that they have increased. So one person who's upset spreads to many who are upset. And so there's a lot of scenarios to think about this, but he's going to God and saying, to me, whether literal or not literally, and we can get into the context of what this actually is. My adversaries increased. That's how he feels. Many are rising up against me. Many are saying of my soul, there is no deliverance for him in God. Now, that's the issue. That's how he feels. But I love what he says in verse 3, "But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory, and the one who lifts my head. I was crying to the Lord with my voice, and he answered me from his holy mountain. I lay down and slept. I awoke, for the Lord sustains me. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people who have set themselves against me around about. Arise, O Lord, save me, O my God, for you have smitten all my enemies on the cheek. You have shattered the teeth of the wicked. Salvation belongs to the Lord. Your blessing be upon your people." Now, that's the trust is, something that really shines throughout this, that no matter what's going on in life, I'm going to trust in God more than trying to figure out how I want to say this. I'm going to trust in God more than, how I feel about what's going on. So,
or the circumstances.
Yeah. There's definitely a humility, a humble aspect to this. David being God's servant, he's going to God first and sharing exactly what and how he feels.
Yeah, and he's just real with God. You know, the idea back in those first two verses about he repeats that idea of many 3 times. How many are my foes? Many are rising. Many are saying.
Yeah.
Well, you go back and you read 2 Samuel, and there was he's not exaggerating here. There's a real threat, but because of that, he feels alone. And it's almost like he says what they're saying, these many, or there's no salvation for him in God. It's almost like he's saying, are you hearing this, God? Are you hearing what they're saying? Because the enemies of David are the enemies of God. And, you know, when David makes his appeal to God, yes, it's about him, but to your point about the humility and service, one of the things that David is most concerned about is not the fact that they're doing this to me, but as the anointed king of God's people, the enemies of David were the enemies of God. And so this is hurting your reputation, God.
Yeah.
So, you know, he appeals. It's almost like we would not feel comfortable appealing to God. There's times where David will say stuff like, you know, if I die and I go to Sheol, then what good am I going to do? It's almost like he's bargaining with God or reasoning with God.
Yeah.
And of course, it's not that God needs that explained, but this is part of David working through all of this mentally and emotionally himself. But, you know, the idea here, there's a real threat here, and it's made him feel like he is all alone, like he's isolated. And, you know, kind of like Elijah and Job and other godly men where they didn't have anywhere else to turn to but God. But do you want to jeopardize your reputation by not coming to my defense? You know, do you want to be like that God? And so he's just making that appeal to him because that's where you need to turn. If you trust in God, and we say we do, then when times turn bad, don't turn away from God, turn towards God.
Yeah. And that's a big thing. You know, I've got here written in my notes, this is a great time of, you know, obviously there are threats that are going on, and this creates a problem. Well, when we get into the problem, we're looking at David. In other words, how does David feel? So this is a great time, it seems, of anxiety for David. And every one of us feels anxious about something. Now, we can go to all of the texts that say, you know, don't be anxious, right? You know, we can talk about, you know, Matthew chapter 6. We can discuss, you know, go to, where's it? I'm trying to think. Well, it'll come
Philippians
to me.
4.
Yes, yeah. So there's a lot of different places that talk about the fact that we should not be anxious. Now, I'm still going to get anxious. I don't know how to get around that. There are times that I'm going to be, you know, there are going to be times that I feel anxious about things. I'm going to be stressed about things, and so, you know, it really is hard to get away from that idea, and so. This is a part of life when you have a lot of stuff going on and it's negative. There really are people against you, or maybe a situation is you know, got you in its grips. You know, this could probably, you know, we could probably put a lot of different scenarios in here. There's a lot of things that can cause anxiety, a lot of things that can cause stress or worry. I know Jesus said, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow will take care of itself. Okay. But, you know, when a situation is stressful, it's stressful. And so what do you do with that stress? What do you do with that anxiety? That's really the question here. You know, my adversaries have increased. Many are rising up against me. Many are saying of my soul, there's no deliverance from him. So he's got a lot of stuff going on. But here's the beautiful thing I think about it is as we move from this great problem that he has to who he needs to go to. He goes straight to where his adversaries can't get him. He goes to where he has the most protection, and that's with God. But so the right kind of mindset can offset the anxiety that one feels in life. So he says, here's my deal. Here's what I'm struggling with. And in many of these cases, I can see, maybe tears coming down his face. He's very stressed. He's sitting there on a rock by a cave. He's sitting in the middle of a field, wherever he might be, and he's pacing. He's really going through it. I know this is going on, but you, oh Lord, are a shield about me. So he's going right back to the one that he trusts, the one that he loves, the one he knows is there, no matter what everybody else is saying. He's going to be there.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. We're gonna have worry and stress sometimes, but do what you can do about it. And then after that, are you okay with just turning over the Lord and trusting Him and saying, okay, however this works out, I know God is going to use it. And ultimately, he's pacing at that cave, but eventually he gets to the point where he's going to lie down and sleep, which is usually what we don't do when we're worried. Well, I didn't sleep at all last night. Why not? Well, I was so worried about it. Mm-hmm. Well, did you pray about it? Did you turn it over to God? And I think it's cool too. You mentioned that he says, you're a shield about me, my glory and the lifter of my head. But the fact that he calls him a shield, because David is a military man, and there's a number of places in the Psalms that he talks about God being a shield or protector for him. It's really a cool thing. How many times did David in battle have a shield that, was the only thing that deflected a sword or an arrow or whatever that saved his life? Well, the idea of God being a shield is a really important concept to him. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a really awesome thing to think about. I mean, you mentioned this earlier, that in this case and many others, he felt like he was alone. Mm-hmm. How many people have you met, talked with, studied with? How many of them feel that way about life? And that's not limited to just, what we'd say members of the church, which we generally say is, we generally think is, well, that's our audience. Of course,
we have a caller online too.
We have a caller online too. Yeah. Yeah. We're going to give away free tickets to the Ole Miss game. No, anyway, lost my track.
You're live on WEXL.
That's right. WEXL. Oh my goodness. We're going to start a new radio station here. Yeah.
It's Garrett and Corey in the morning.
Oh man. We can't have stuff like that happen.
How's the traffic look out there?
How's the traffic?
Well, we're live in the air.
Well, here in Hydro, it's really backed up. There's about 3 cars in the old town going on. Anyway, man.
Go ahead.
We're talking about loneliness. I really am alone around me. Loneliness is not just limited to the folks that are in the pews. Loneliness is also something that applies to the preacher. It applies to the elder. It applies to the missionary. Loneliness is a real concept. It's a real thing that people feel. And in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, loneliness is only something that we have constructed in our mind. How many people have we seen that say, I'm so lonely, yet they're surrounded by people who love them? And every single one of us can feel that way. No one's exempt from that idea. David had a lot of people around him. He had servants, he had wives, he had children. He had a lot of people around him, but he had God behind him, and his focus was not on all these people around me. The focus was, I've got God with me. And to use Paul's words in Romans 8, if God is for me, I'm changing it a little bit, then who can be against me? So he knows no matter what's going on, no matter how he feels, he's not alone. God is there. And I think that's such a huge thing for all of us to think about in our life. no matter what's thrown our way by whomever, God is a shield that's there for me. I love that. And this is a song, right? No, have you heard the song? Yeah. You're a shield about me, my glory, the one who, I think the song goes, the lifter of my head. I don't know, it has that whole sentence in there, but man, meaning my head is down because I'm so worrisome. I'm so anxious. I'm so stressed. I don't know what to do, but because you're with me, you lift my head to keep walking forward. Mm-hmm. It's awesome.
Yeah, you think about when your head droops is when you're tired, when you're depressed, when you're, and so like you said, it's not just something that you put on the church sign or a bullet point in the bulletin or whatever. We'll say, you plus God equals the majority or whatever. Me plus God equals, well, that's what he's saying. There's many are my foes, many are rising, many are saying, and then he turns right around and he's going to say here in just a minute that I'm not going to be afraid of many thousands of people. Well, what was the difference? What happens there in verses 3 and 4? And, you think about his problems. These enemies are resisting him and they're ridiculing him. But there's 4 things in verses 3 and 4 that God does for him. He says he's my shield, which we already talked about. He's my glory, and that word just means honor or riches or splendor or something of that nature. He's my strength because he's the one that lifts my head when I'm too weak to lift my own head. And then the 4th thing is he's my Savior. I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill, which would be Mount Zion, where the Ark of the Covenant is. But God is everything. Everyone is against me, but God is my everything, and that's why I can trust and have confidence.
Mm. Yeah. And verse 5 is pretty cool.
Hey, before you go to verse 5, can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
That we haven't pointed out, and I don't think we did last week either, but you did such a good job reading this text, because when you got to the end of verse 2, you didn't say Selah. It's not showing up on yours there.
Yeah, I'm noticing that. Yeah.
It's probably, if you go up to the little 3 little dots up there, it's probably a visual filter that's not been checked.
Oh, up here? Well,
I don't see it up there right now. But anyway,
yeah.
That's not necessarily anyway. But you'll notice if you're looking in a hard copy Bible or whatever, and the end of verse 2 is Selah, the end of verse 3 is Selah, and the end of verse 8 is Selah. Yeah. And when you're doing the scripture reading or you're preaching, that's not something that you need to read, because it was a notation for the way they would sing it as they would sing these songs. And it just means there's a pause or an interlude. Mm-hmm. And what your mind does automatically when there's a pause, it's one of the reasons why when you're preaching or teaching, it's so powerful to pause, because our minds are made as such to where when you're listening to something, when someone pauses, you automatically rewind and replay that in your subconscious again. So he's wanting to emphasize at the end of verse 2, there's no deliverance for him in God. That's what everybody is saying. And then verse 4, he's wanting to emphasize, I cried aloud to the Lord, and he answered me from his holy hill. That's something to pause and think about. That when it seems as if no one else cares, there it goes. It's just hidden over on the right side of the screen.
Yeah.
When it seems no one, and it hover over that 3 beside the Selah at the end of verse 2, it'll probably tell you.
Selah means pause, crescendo, or musical interlude.
Yeah, so it's making you think about what he just said. So it's kind of like emphasizing the main points of this. When everyone is saying there's nowhere to turn. And how many times have we felt that way?
Yeah.
And then verse 4, but when I called to God, when no one else cared, God saved me. Mm-hmm. And then pause and think about that for a minute.
Yeah.
And then move on to what you were going to do in verse 5.
Yeah, which, I don't know, you may agree with or disagree with this, but, we talked about that meditate word in Psalm 1 and verse 2, and it's almost like this, this way that he would have written this music, basically, is stop, meditate on what you just said before you move on to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, chew on that for a little bit.
Chew on it, yeah. This is my situation. What's your situation? They may not be exactly the same, but they may have the same effects on you.
Yeah.
So pause. Yep. There is no deliverance. That's the message that I'm getting. Now pause and think about that. But you, O Lord, are a shield about me, my glory and the one lifter of my head. I was crying to the Lord with my voice, and he answered me from his holy mountain. Now pause. Consider that. It's amazing. I mean, there is no possible way that all of this was written by accident. No way. So because now look at verse 5, and this is what's really, I think if you just read through this, it probably doesn't, it may not catch your eye. And I've read through this before, and it didn't catch my eye. But when you begin to think about the significance, and Corey, you mentioned this earlier, he says, I lay down and slept. This right here is a very, very big deal. That's not what I wanted right there. I am, for all of you Bible markers, I'm going to say it again. I'm just playing around and trying to mark stuff as we go. I don't pre-mark this. I just want to kind of show us what show you what we're looking at. But anyway, I lay down and slept. Corey mentioned when I'm stressed, anxious, did you sleep last night? No. Well, let's think about why he was able to lay down and sleep. When you have all these people rising against me, many are saying of my soul, there is no deliverance. I mean, you're on your own. God's not going to help you. The adversaries are increased. The stress is increasing. The problems are increasing. There's seemingly no way out. But he understands maybe, in his life, maybe they kill me. Maybe my situation changes. Maybe things get worse. It does not matter because I am going to put all of my trust in God. So, as a result of that, God, I know you are my glory. You're the one who lifts my head. I'm going to cry to you with my voice. And I know that you're listening to me. And I know that you're ultimately, in whatever way, going to answer me. So I'm going to put this in your hands. And I'm going to go to bed. Now, that right there is so big. 1 Peter chapter 5 and verse 7. I think this kind of falls in line. I'm casting all of my anxiety on him because he cares for me. I'm going to throw it your way. I'm going to let you handle this. I'm going to go to bed and we'll think about it tomorrow. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And you think about like Philippians 4 and verse 6 and the peace that passes understanding. And, John chapter 14, verse 27, the peace that we have from Jesus. The world doesn't understand that, but it's something we can only have when we have a relationship with God.
Yeah. Yeah. I awoke, for the Lord sustains me. So he's going to keep things going. I will not be afraid of 10,000s of people. So, from that perspective, Corey, who do you think that he's more afraid of? I mean, Solomon, he said, when all is said and done, there are two things that really matter: fear God and keep his commandments. Well, who does David fear more? 10,000s of people, or the Lord is God? He's not worried.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like...
And notice the circumstances haven't changed. Because in the very next line, who have set themselves against me all around. Well, that goes back to there's many against me. There's many rising. There many are saying.
Yeah.
But notice, and I've got a line drawn in my Bible, I've got circled against me all around in verse 6. And then I've got circled in verse 3, a shield about me and a line drawn between the two. Yes, there's people all around me, but guess what else is all around me? The presence of God. Mm. There's no weakness to the Lord's defense. So what's the worst thing they're going to do to me? They're going to kill me?
Yeah.
God still got me,
Yeah.
Having that kind of faith and trust and confidence is what David had and what we need to have as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's the trust. You mentioned right when we started, this is a trust psalm. This is somebody who's literally putting all their eggs in that basket with God and saying, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that I'm good with you, and so I'm with you. And there are so many great examples of this concept throughout the text. I mean, amazing story. Gideon in his 300 goes against thousands of people. What would be going through your mind if you're Gideon? Like, this is
crazy.
This is nuts. But he goes down and they win. And they win. And it's unbelievable. David goes and faces this giant of a man. Everybody's looking at David going, you're nuts.
And even let me give you another one that maybe is a little bit more parallel to what we might go through. The Lord tells Ananias, the guy that everybody's afraid of that's killing Christians left and right? Mm-hmm. He's down the street. I want you to go preach the gospel to him.
Oh, man.
Are you sure, Lord?
You're crazy. There's no way.
You want me to go down there?
Well, I mean, even when Jesus turned he turned his face, or he turned, can't remember exactly how it says it, but he turned his nose toward Jerusalem, and he's told the guys what's going to happen. The apostles know what's going to happen. We get on to Peter for so many things. Like, why are you talking to our Lord like this? Peter didn't see him like that. He's like, you're not going over there. You're crazy. You know what they're going to do to you. You're nuts. But
Yep.
there's this trust that faithful men and women have that is just outstanding. I don't know what other word there is for it. And it's something, brother, it's something I'm trying to still figure out in my life. How can I go through these situations that I go through, and how can you go through the situations you go through and trust God more than myself? Trust God more than the people I love. Trust God more than the fear that I may have that's going. It's outstanding.
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. People are going to think we rehearsed this. We did not. But that's exactly what the last two verses in this psalm tell us. All of these trust psalms have a point where he's going to reflect back in the past and say, the reason why I can have this trust is because God has always, maybe he's talking about past events. Maybe he could be really confident in God and trusting that he's going to, but he says, you strike all my enemies, you break the teeth of the wicked. You can look at that as what he is going to do or is currently doing, or this is like the pattern that I've seen, which I think is kind of what he's doing here. Why would I not trust in God? Because he has helped me so much through the years. And you think about like passages like James chapter 1, we're leading our mind to think about trials in the right way. Well, part of that is, yes, this is a trial, but think back to all the other trials. Did God get us through that? Maybe not the way I wanted, but did everything turn out, or like in, I had another thought and it died of loneliness. But you think about, the idea of what we're doing in our lives. 2 Corinthians chapter 1 is the other one I was thinking of. What we go through in our lives, and when God comforts us, how we can use that to comfort others. We ought to grow on what has happened in the past. And maybe not with us, but even like you're talking about. When I'm studying the book of Judges and I read about Gideon, well, if God can get Gideon through that, he can get me through this. When I'm reading about, Ananias in the book of Acts, well, if God got him through that, he can get me. And even I think, and here's where I'll get you and me in trouble, but a biblical concept called witnessing that we don't want to use, but the idea of just talking about how God has helped me in my life. If we talked about that with each other, how much strength could we get from each other?
Right.
In doing those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. To know that other people are going through the same stuff that you are, them talking about their life. Another one that I thought about, and this is one probably most people had already thought about while we're talking about this, but even when Moses is at this burning bush, go back to Egypt. You're nuts. No way. I'm not doing that. That's how I would feel like, going into a crazy situation, but to see all of these things incorporated into people's lives, and when they share that stuff with you, that only does one thing, at least for me. That lets me know, one, I'm not the only one, and two, if they can do it, I can too.
That's right.
And that I think that's a huge thing that David is sharing, within his writing, for us, in all this time of struggle and trial and anxiety and worry and stress. I was able to go to sleep because I knew that God was going to take care of this one way or the other. I knew he was going to take care of this. He's the one who sustains me. And because I know he's with me, I'm not going to be afraid no matter what's in front of me. And they can set up camp around me. They can plan. It does not matter to me because I'm going to stand with the Lord, and I'm going to always stand with him. And I know that if he chooses to do so, he is going to take care of those enemies. He's gonna do whatever he needs to with those enemies. In all times and all cases of life, salvation always belongs to the Lord. He's the one who can bless. I mean, this is not just a basic level of, I trust your judgment. I trust that this is right, whatever. Like you just say it, tongue in cheek. This is kind of that idea that we read about in 1 Peter, and you tell me what you think about this. It's kind of the same thing that we read about in 1 Peter 2, 20 through 25, where it talks about the fact that Jesus entrusted himself to God while he's on the cross. That's, obviously he's quoting Isaiah 53. But then in chapter 4 and verse 19, he tells the Christians that they're to do the same thing, to entrust themselves. Well, the idea of entrusting is like the giving, putting all of your being in the hands of another. That's exactly what Jesus did. And put everything that I am, God, in your hands. And the Christian is to do the same. I think that this is a great example of somebody, and I realize that David was not always perfect. He's going to have strong moments. He's going to have weak moments. But in this trust psalm, I really think this is a great example of a man after God's own heart saying, I know this is a bad situation, but I'm putting all of my trust in my life and my soul in your hands, and whatever you want to do with this, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to bed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not to steal your thunder from your anchor thought here in a minute, but
steal it.
That idea of salvation is, and this may not be where you're going anyway, but that idea of salvation, that word in the Hebrew, most of the time in Psalms, he's not talking about saving from sins. That's the way we think of that idea of salvation.
Yeah.
Most of the time in Psalms, it's about saving me, helping me from whatever it is I'm dealing with. Mm-hmm. But there's 3 times it's used in this psalm that I think kind of wraps up everything he's saying in this psalm. The first one is in verse 2, what people are saying, there's no salvation for him in God. The second time it's used is verse 7, where he's calling out and saying, "Save me, oh my God." And then the third time it's used in verse 8, salvation belongs to the Lord. Mm-hmm. So what is he saying here in this trust psalm in a nutshell? When you're going through troubles and you're going through times that, the chaos in the world seems like it's turning upside down, you're going to be tempted to think that God's no help. Where is God? Why did he let this happen? Whatever. But if you will call out to God, turn to God, put your trust in him, he is the one who can bring help and peace. He is the one that can help you get through those times. And ultimately, as we understand salvation on this side of the cross, he's the one that eternally is going to make things right for us as well. So I love being, I'm simple-minded. So I love kind of trying to, what's the bare bones of this? Well, it's all about, I can trust, even though people say you can't trust God, if I call out to God, I can trust God to take care of me.
Yeah. That's a I don't know if this would be the right phrase, but a supreme confidence, like the highest level of confidence that you could possibly have, to be able to walk into a fire like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, he can save us, but if he don't, he's still God.
If he don't, I mean, the world, Satan has done a great job of convincing the world that if our situation in life is not good, it is somehow God's fault. Mm-hmm. And that's simply not true. God has allowed us to have the freedom of choice, and we can choose right, we can choose wrong, and we can create good and bad situations. That's how he's designed us. I'm thankful for that, by the way. I'm not upset that he's given me the ability to choose what I want to do with my time. I'm thankful for that. And the results of that from a spiritual perspective is that you really can see what true faith looks like when a person has the opportunity to choose something and doesn't because they have you in mind. And that's, ultimately what pleases God. So for that idea, we can choose, him before everything else, and to be able to run to him and to be able to put all of our supreme confidence in him is just a very big thing. And I don't know, something that we can really look to as a great example for each of us. That it really is, God's way is always the best way. And to be able to run throughout life and say, I'm good with whatever you want to do, because I know ultimately you're going to do what's right, no matter what I do or what other people do. And I've said this before, and I say it more and more frequently. God will always be faithful to you and to the world, no matter whether or not the world or you are faithful to him. That's right. Never going to change. And so that allows me to even build more of that trust to say, I know without a shadow of a doubt where you are and what you're going to do. You've proven it time and time again. From the time of your promise to Abraham to now, you have allowed me, a Gentile believer, to be a part of the tree that ultimately we're grafted in, that goes all the way back to that promise. And you have kept your promise to me and to all the world that I could have salvation and freedom from your wrath and from my sin. And I know, because of all the things you've accomplished, that in the end, I know that if you've done all this, that you are going to, take me with you whenever you decide to come back. No matter what happens here, I'm going to put my life in your hands. That's right. That's David.
Yep. And understand that trust doesn't happen overnight. It's just like, you've seen the trust falls where you fall backwards and people, the first time you do that, maybe you're not real sure about what's going on.
Yeah. I didn't trust anybody behind me.
That's right. Yeah. But if you do it and they repeatedly catch you, then over time,
it doesn't matter.
It's the same thing with God. The more you put yourself in his hands and you see that more and more he doesn't let you down, it's a lot easier to continue to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you definitely have to work at. You have to develop, and that spending more time with him in his word. That's Psalm 1. And with him in prayer, which I'm going to say Psalm 3 would be a good example of that. The more time you spend with him, the more you will be able to rely on him. And that will really bring blessings upon you in a great way. Maybe you might not be blessed physically in some aspect. Maybe. I think everybody experiences that. But this life is not about this life. It's about the next one. It's about eternal life. That's where all true blessings will be with the Lord forever and ever. And man, I can't wait till that day. Cannot wait. It's going to be so great. I was thinking about, yesterday, we're still dealing with the loss of my grandfather. And I thought, how many of the people that he's able to see and know and talk to that he hasn't gotten to in a long time. And so many more that are there in what I believe is paradise at this point. And, the great time that he's having. And so it was almost like the more I thought about it, the more it really brought to fruition the idea that they're not dead. They're just not here. And so I began thinking about them from that perspective. I'll see them later. But, again, even to his last breath, he was putting trust in God. That's what I need to do. That's what we all need to do. In every time of our life, even up to the time of our last breath, put your trust in him and blessings will come.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, Corey, this is always, as usual, for me, a highlight of my week, being able to spend good time with you. And we certainly miss Tyler being on here. But so far, this has been my favorite season because of how we've been able to dig in to the text. And when Tyler's added back in, it'll make it even better just because of the thoughts that we're able to share and dig in. And I really hope that all of you who are listening and tuning in, I hope that you're gleaning something from this. If nothing else, that we're generating some thoughts of study in your mind so that you can take the things that we've talked about and go study them and think about them, meditate on these things on your own. So, Corey, any last thoughts that you'd like to share before we call this episode a wrap?
I think that's got it.
Yeah. Well, it's been good to talk with you, my friend. It's been good to be with all of our listeners, and just thank you for joining us. This is a lot of fun, and we hope it is for you. We do hope that you will like and share and subscribe to this podcast. You can find this, of course, on any and all of the major podcasting networks. You can head over to our website, excelstillmore.net. Go to the Excel Pod. You'll find our network of podcasts that we're very hopeful that we'll be adding to those maybe in the next few months, one or two podcast. But we've got a great lineup, a lot of different things that are being talked about, contemplated for our growth. And so that's what we want to do, is generate thoughts and make us examine the text as it is and see where we come out and really grow and untie ourselves from traditional thoughts, but tie ourselves to biblical concepts. What the Bible says and what it teaches, that's where we need to stand. And that's an ongoing process. And so we hope that all the things that we're doing with Excel Still More Inc. Is helping you to do that. But until next time, We hope that the Lord will continue to bless you in your daily walk with Him. And we pray that you will have a great rest of your week. And we will look forward to seeing you next Thursday, or you listening to us next Thursday at noon, as that is when this show airs every week. So until next time, stay untied.